Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.
The Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, where we believe that everyone is creative, but smart creative people know they don't have to go it alone.
I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell. If you're an OG listener, welcome back, Sparkler. If you're joining us for the first time, you should know that all are welcome here.
Whether your creativity has been on pause during this time or you've clung to it like a lifeline, welcome.
But you might be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File? Where do I get one? What do I file in it? These are such good questions, and we have answers.
A Spark File is a place where you consistently collect all your inspirations and fascinations.
Here's the deal. We are makers who make all kinds of things.
If you're like us and you're making stuff all the time or want to be making stuff all the time, you know the wellspring of inspiration can run a little dry, especially now.
But don't despair. We're here for you, and we are on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity. Things that inspire us all to get up off of our asses and make things like this podcast.
Or a frolicking good time that combines everyone's creativity.
Or some bite-sized writing that contains so much in so little.
Every episode, we're going to reach into the Spark File and exchange some sparks. And from time to time, we're going to talk to some folks who spark us too.
And if you're not careful, we might just slide into 2021 in creative style. So without further ado, let's open up the
Spark File. Hey, Happy New Year!
New Year!
Aww.
I guess technically last week we gave you the gift of Sutton Foster.
We did. We gave the gift of Sutton Foster for the new year. Hope everyone enjoyed that as much as we did.
Oh my gosh.
That was an amazing conversation. It was like one of those where you're like, we could talk for 4 more hours.
Yeah, that was one we tell our guests it's going to be this much time, and we get into it and I'm like, I don't think they want to leave, and we don't want to leave.
And we don't want to leave.
But I'm always like, we got to push you out the door because you're, was just painfully aware that they wanted to watch a movie later that evening.
That's
and
right.
Because
like, remember, you had plans. You got to go.
Husband's going to be mad at us.
Or sometimes people have like other interviews and things that they've set up, and we're like, no, really, you have to go.
You have to go. We know your schedule, and you have to go. But this is the first episode where I feel like we're officially saying Happy New Year to you, gentle sparklers.
That's right. Straight from us, we're saying Happy New Year. And I want to just admit, like, it feels like it was sort of a weird New Year, right? It was like just a strange. It was like, okay, it's New Year's, but it doesn't feel like New Year's, but it is.
Gone are the days when I am like, we must stay up and watch the bowl drop. I mean, I used to be that person when I was younger, and now I'm just like in bed by 9:30.
Hey. That's impressive.
That's my tradition. I'm dead by 9:30.
Usually we will, like, if we're in Florida, we'll light a fire and sit out, and try to make it to midnight. And people here, like, fireworks are legal. So people will do their own fireworks and whatnot, so we'll stay up and enjoy that. But we didn't this year. I think I had a sort of a morbid, like, I got to stick with Anderson Cooper in Times Square there and just, like give him my support, because what a weird year. It was so strange. I was like, I never watched the ball drop, but why do I feel compelled? Like, no, I've really got to stick with, he needs my energy right now. I
did visit that Times Square broadcast for just a moment, and I was like, this is so weird because of the pandemic. There were they had hired like a little cluster of 3 people and then a little cluster of 2 people. And they kept cutting back and forth between the host and then the little cluster of 3 and the little cluster of 2. And then in the background, they had put those, just to have movement on the screen, they'd put those inflatable used car like wiggly dudes.
Squiggly guys. Yep.
Yeah. And I was like, I just wanted to, I guess culturally just wanted to check in and be like, what's happening in the zeitgeist? And then I was like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
And but we were preparing for what has become a real annual tradition for us,
that's right,
which is our annual Creativity
KickOff. Yeah.
I feel like we were busy working on that too a little.
We definitely were. We definitely were working on that, and just getting buttoning up all the details the night before, which is also an exciting way to kind of bring in the new year for us. I think it helps us to like really focus our energies on what we want to accomplish and how we want to tee ourselves up for the coming year, which is
absolutely
just great. Yeah.
This time has been so challenging, but as Sutton Foster, was saying, there are so many silver linings.
Yeah.
And I love that we did uphold our annual tradition of hosting this creativity retreat, but that we had the technology in place to make it virtual. And also, I feel like we took it to a next level.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes.
That I was really, really excited about and really proud of. We tasked ourselves with the challenge of creating a bunch of just new curriculum. And it was make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver, the other is gold. And we kept some old friends and some just core things that we know we love to do. But there was so much freshness. And in itself, creating that was such a fun creative act.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And we expanded it because, so a couple of things. We expanded it to 2.5 days, which, when we were in person, it's a lot to ask people if they're traveling in, and it just adds to the expense. So we've kept it to 2 days in the past. This was 2.5 days. And then really also, I would say besides the additional curriculum, really looking at everything with an eye towards how can this work in this new medium? How can this work virtually? And everything has to serve the purpose of creating a community of people and an experience for them that will literally bring us all together and lift our spirits and set us up, reconnect us with our creativity and set us up for the new year. So it was kind of fun to, look at our content from that perspective as well and see, what could still be of service through Zoom and which things needed to be updated for the platform.
Another silver lining, we had folks who were able to join us from all over the globe.
Oh my God.
People that,
amazing.
Again, if you had to buy a plane ticket and book a hotel, it may, they may not be able to do that and take that time, but because they could just Zoom on in. We had people from everywhere,
Scotland to Seattle. We had Madrid, Marina del Rey.
Yes.
Right. We had Orlando and Ottawa. We had Oklahoma. I mean, it's nuts. And Los Angeles and New York, of course. And although we don't take that for granted, but a lot of our friends are in New York and LA. So it was
yes, but also
like
people from
international.
like the Carolinas and Nebraska,
Yes.
and like
Yes.
you know what, we should put a big map on the wall,
Oh
and
my
we should
gosh.
start putting pins on
Yes.
where all of our participants join us
Yes,
from.
I totally want to do that. We're going to do that. Also, the thing is, so there this like geographical diversity, but also this wide array of creatives.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
like we had actors and writers and authors and educators. We had people building empires.
Yes.
We had coaches and a YouTube chef and
monologuists,
yes.
directors, artistic directors,
Yes.
voiceover artists,
farmers.
farmers.
I mean, come on, it's amazing.
Farmers and crafters and novelists and playwrights and
Yeah.
musicians. It was really a great group.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Very sparkish.
Super fun.
Very.
Yeah.
Just speaking for myself, I felt very. I know that we were supposed to be providing the service, but I felt that my little creative fish pond was really restocked.
Oh my gosh! Just being in the presence of everyone, and they were so caring and giving and supportive.
Just a great group of human beings.
A really great group.
What were some of your favorite moments? Like when you think back on this, what will you?
Well, I will say that we had a special guest named Jenny Clift come, and that session was
Jenny Clift has to be on the podcast.
She has to be on the podcast. I hope she's listening right now and saying, yes, I will do it. Hi, Jenny. But she does EFT, this tapping exercise, which really helps you to like disrupt the neural pathways that have been established in your brain for years, and disrupt them with new messaging. Yeah, that may be limiting you. And what's so amazing is that you can feel viscerally after, just a 20-minute session, you can feel the benefits of it. So it's the kind of thing where, I don't know, you might potentially feel resistance to like, well, this seems too simple to solve my very complicated problems. But in actuality, like you do it for 20 minutes and you're like, this changes everything.
Yeah, she was amazing. And it was amazing to see people, especially, it's called the EFT or emotional freedom technique, which I love those words.
Mm-hmm.
Don't we all want that?
Yes.
But just to see people who had never experienced EFT tapping before, to see their eyes light up with the possibility of it was amazing.
It was incredible.
And again, just like the way people supported each other and cared for each other.
Yeah, that was a highlight.
Something that I found really to that point, something that I was really impressed by with this group of people is at the beginning, we set this principle in place, which is the idea of step forward, step back, which is, if you're the kind of person who in groups, you're very forward-footed, you talk a lot, your hand is always the first hand raised, to just play around with stepping back to make space for others. And if you're the kind of person like me, frankly, who in groups, you tend to, I know I say these things and people are like, really, Susan?
Experience of you. You always like answer the teacher first.
I've overtrained.
I'll answer that if no one wants to go.
That's a practice that I've forced myself to do since I was in high school, to step forward. And the idea is to create space where there's balanced conversational turn taking, and the idea when you hear more voices in the even the virtual space, the collective intelligence of the room is lifted up because of that. And people really took that to heart.
Yeah, they did.
People made space for each other. People who I know for a fact would not be inclined to step forward, totally stepped forward in this way that, oh my God. I have to say that's kind of like It seems a little esoteric, but you could see it in action.
Yes.
And it was a thing of beauty. It was really
It
great.
really, really was. And I'm sorry to like focus it on us, but we've never talked about this in regards to us before. And I'm finding it fascinating that you just said like you overtrained yourself to step forward, because I've overtrained myself to step back. Because when I was daughter of a teacher, so first hand in the air, I've got the answer. I like good student, good girl, good, like this is how you're supposed to do it. And only later in life learned like, you know what? Maybe you don't have anything to prove. You don't have to be like, pick me. I know what to say. I've got the thing here. And trained the other way. So I'm really fascinated by this now. I've been fascinated, but you and I, like, we talk about it, but we've never talked about it in that way, because I would never have said like, because we take classes together. We take classes together, and you'll be like, I have if like the teacher says, does anyone have a thing? Susan will be like, I'm happy to share. And
I'll usually go, I'll wait a beat.
You'll wait a beat. Yeah.
And then wait a beat. And then I'll say, I will share.
Exactly.
And I remember when we would have like guest artists visit in college, and I remember being asked by teachers to put my hand up for like, Susan, will you kick it off? And I also remember, because I was so scared, training myself to just be like, I would just like punch my hand into the air, even if I was like, I'm not ready. But it was, I think I've overtrained. And now
no,
it's true. No, it's just something to just, it's all
awareness.
Just a game,
just awareness
that we can play with this awareness. But it's, I just think about now, I don't know, just in terms of balance in a room that we're facilitating, balance amongst us talking. It's just it's good to keep in mind.
It is. And you can, just keeping in mind, like you can be both of these things in the same session. You know, the first time the teacher asks a question, you can be the, I'm stepping forward person. And the next time you can be like, I'm stepping back because I spoke last time. I mean, it really is just about awareness. It's not like a defining feature of us as human beings. It's just something, to think about.
It might have become a defining feature. I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
Other thing, what else did we love?
Well, I think this is along the lines of the community that was built. We did this thing where we had the Sparkfile Lounge, which was, during breaks or during lunch, we would have literally breakout rooms that would be like, I was imagining, like I've been at many, many conferences in person and workshops and different things. And half of the time, like it's in the margins, you meet wonderful people and then you're like, let's get a coffee or, where are you having lunch today? We could all have lunch in the same place. And so I think managed to recreate that sort of dynamic, in a virtual space because just speaking vulnerably, we were not sure. We're like, well, is this going to work? We don't know, but we'll set it up just in case. And every time we'd get a break and, we'd go get some water and a snack, I'd come back and be like, oh my gosh, there's 15 people in breakout rooms chatting with each other, having a great time, sharing stories. And that just warmed my heart so much.
Also, as an extension of those relationships, it was really great to see accountability partnerships emerging between people who had met at the retreat. And it also, it excites me because something that we haven't announced yet, but we will soon, is going to be a way for people to do that even more readily, those accountability partnerships in a way that we can also help facilitate and support. So that was really fun.
Oh my gosh. Also, sorry to interrupt. I got so excited. Laura Benanti and Fisher Barnett joined us.
That's right.
It was almost like for dessert because we had them come in like the last thing on the last day. And it was, we had done all of this creative, this creative, like bringing things to the surface and committing, to things. And all of it felt amazing. And then we got to sit back and relax and listen to two people who have made something special together, this HBO Max special called Homeschool Musical. And of course, Laura Benanti has done a million things that we got to talk to her about as well. And it was such a treat. It was such a treat to talk to people who are out there doing it. They're in the arena and making it happen.
Big risks.
Yeah.
Taking big risks, making it happen. And I loved hearing Laura Benanti has such a clarity that I always enjoy.
Yeah.
And then Fisher Barnett is a light. From the first time I met her, and I said it to her, I saw this light in her.
Yeah.
And I'm very inspired by what Fisher is doing.
Me too.
With her work and with her life. And it was just so wonderful to get to be in conversation with them.
Yeah. And interesting, like the project that they did together too was one of these incredible projects that grew out of Instagram during the pandemic, essentially.
Yeah.
So, musicals and TV shows, things are happening from people's creative use of that platform.
It was just a thing of beauty. I felt very filled up after all of it, Cammie, and I was very proud. You and I worked so hard on it, and I was really proud. Austin Sargent was there with us all the way. Austin Sargent is amazing.
Thank
teaching
you,
artist.
Austin.
But if you ever join us, this virtual retreat culminates in such an exciting way. The creative risks that people took were so unbelievable. It was, and jumping back to us, not to make it all about us, but it really was a risk for us too.
Yeah.
Like we were trying to make something, as we said, like bigger and better. And we were writing a lot of new curriculum and trying to create this community, like you were saying, Cams.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, Cammie, there were moments when I had to take my own medicine. And I was so nervous. I was so nervous about some new thing that we were doing. It felt like a huge risk. And I don't know if anybody noticed, like I was fully on camera, but I wasn't the person who was spotlit at the moment, but I was on camera. I didn't turn my camera off. And I was just fully like doing box breathing, which is a method of breathing to like de-excite the nervous system, because there were moments when Laura had to talk me down when I would text you and I would be like, I'm so nervous. And you would be like, we've got this. We've got this. We have prepared. We have done our work. And now we just have to roll it out. And, and we've got this. So people participating were taking risks, and we were taking risks too.
Yeah, it really felt incredible to be in that together. And I had no doubt in you, Suze. I saw you breathing. I was breathing a little as well. But yeah, it was also exciting. When you're taking the right kind of risk and you're like, okay, it feels scary and risky, but I know I can do it. I can do it. And we did. Yeah. Oh, and also we were really excited because we announced some new things that we're working on at the workshop and ways we announced new ways that we're working to support our clients in this new year. So that was really thrilling and kind of a big deal for us. I mean, I guess we should probably mention that here too. So sorry. I guess we'll say it here too. So this year we're still doing individual private creativity coaching, but we're also kicking off the SparkFile Select Group Creativity Coaching Program, which is this 6-month group coaching program led by us. And it's a select cohort of, I would say, high-functioning creatives, right? High-functioning creatives who are ready to work, who want to feel like they're part of a team that's, collaborating and supporting each other. Mm-hmm. I think it's for people who want to feel like there's a group of people that are invested in their success. You don't have to walk the path alone. And, maybe you have a specific project in mind that you want to create a roadmap for and, get yourself across that finish line in 6 months. Or you might just want a healthy, productive group of people to engage with in a regular creative practice.
Yeah. So you don't have to, when we say collaborate, it doesn't mean that you have to come in and collaborate with these people on the thing that you're doing.
That's right.
It'll just be a group that we can check in with each other. We can support each other. We can learn new creative concepts to help fuel our work. We can meet with amazing, experts and makers. I was saying at the retreat, it's sort of like the retreat. If you weren't there, hopefully you're getting a sense of what it was like, but it was sort of like the retreat that we had. It's just going to be stretched out over the course of 6 months so people can really get into the work that they're doing. And you can walk side by side with other people who are also doing their work.
Exactly. This is what I picture, when you've been, when you surround yourself with a group of people who really stimulate your mind and to inspire and engage and really propel your ideas forward because of the engagement that you're having. And that excites me. Like when I'm in a room with people like that, I want to learn and absorb and let the ideas bounce around in my mind and know that when I emerge from that, I'm going to be, up a level. I'm going to level up.
I will say, Laura, and we've talked about it on this podcast before, but Laura and I have been taking classes all last year. Laura and I have been taking all sorts of classes together to improve our minds and improve our work. And working with a group of high functioning creative peers, and then going into breakout rooms with them, sometimes establishing accountability partnerships with them under the guidance of a great teacher has been, I'm going to go ahead and say it, it's been life-changing. And I think we're really interested in creating something like that for others in the way that it has been created for us.
That's right.
Has really made our lives better.
That's 100%.
I think it does bear mentioning that this isn't the model for everyone. If you know that you prefer the solo path, or if you are somebody who has no trouble sort of getting your own stuff done and establishing these structures on your own, rock the fuck on.
Kudos to
this
you.
would not be for you. And you say something, Cams, and we actually talked about this at the virtual retreat. The way that this clicked into my mind and made so much sense to me is I used to go to a gym that I loved in New York City. It totally changed my life. Shout out to Mark Vision Fitness. But seriously, these folks, this gym educated me about health and fitness and nutrition, and they provided tremendous support in community when I was trying to do something that I'd never done before. And it was amazing. Then I moved away from New York City. And for 3 years, I really struggled because I found that I wasn't inclined to do it on my own. I went to a CrossFit gym, a local CrossFit gym for a short period of time. I really did give it a try. I think I went for 2 months. It wasn't a culture fit for me. And the actual exercises felt like I was going to injure myself, but I digress. But at home, I had the equipment. I had the knowledge because I had been taught it at this gym, but I found that I just wouldn't show up and do the work unless I had that supportive community and some guidance and great teachers. So, the end of that story, I'm happy to report that that beloved gym began offering virtual fitness classes during the pandemic. But just like that, I was back on track with my fitness. So all of that is to say, some of us need coaches and trainers and support and teachers who keep us moving forward. And there's no shame in that. It's one of the things that you and I know about ourselves, Cams, that we thrive under the guidance of folks like that. When it, with this caveat, when it's a good fit,
100%. When it's a good fit.
That was a long way to grandma's house, but that's the way I feel about this select group creativity coaching program for the right person at the right stage in their creativity, who we vibe with and they vibe with us and they vibe with the group. It's a really, really great way to advance your creativity.
It is. I'm super excited about it. I think selfishly, I think it's going to fuel us as much as it's going to fuel any of our participants.
God, yes.
So it's going to be it's going to be really, really exciting. And listeners, there's no doubt, I'm sure we'll be talking about it along the way as we make discoveries and as we figure out like, oh, that really worked, or, oh, that maybe didn't work. I'm sure we'll be talking about it. There's no doubt about it. Oh, but if you are hearing this and you're like, oh, I'm interested, tell me more. You can
Tell me more.
Tell me more. You can visit thesparkfile.com and go to our coaching page. And there's a lot more information there. Even fill out a little, click the button to get a call, and we'll get you flowing in the right direction.
And I want to just stress, we're accepting applications for this. This is a select group coaching program. We'll only accept people who we feel like are a real fit in terms of where they're at in their creative lives and a good fit for the group. So this is an application process.
That is so true, Suze. But another thing that I'd like to clarify is that we're still going to be doing a number of things, even some things we haven't announced yet, that are going to ensure that the ways in which you want to engage or need to engage are there for you. So obviously we're still going to be doing the podcast. We do these free creativity, like long weekend mini challenges. We'll be doing those. We'll do Creativity KickOff workshops, and group coaching and private coaching and a few other little things that we haven't announced yet. So there's many, many ways to engage. This may be the right one for you, or we might have that phone call and determine that there's some other right way that we can support you, or a right way that you can engage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's something for everyone, even if this thing isn't the exact right thing for you.
So true.
So the workshop was a joy.
So the workshop was a high.
The workshop was a high. Yeah. That's where you're getting us right now. But there's something that we do want to acknowledge. We're recording this on Friday, January 8th. So as you may recall, on January 6th, we had I don't even know how to characterize this, a dark day.
Oh, we had an incredibly dark day in our country, and insurrectionists breached our Capitol. And we watched security failure, and we watched our lawmakers of our country cower behind their seats like a lockdown drill. If you've, been in a school recently, that's what the students get trained to do. And the training is scary enough. But when you know that there actually are people in the hallway outside with guns and pipe bombs, etc., how terrifying. And the rest of the world saw people climbing the walls of our Capitol. It looks easily. Like, it genuinely looked like another country, and it was horrifying.
And I know this point has been made in like so many ways. It's been made in sincere ways. It's been made in funny ways. But if those insurrectionists had been anything but white, they would have been either dead or, it's when you say the failure of security, the implications of that are so shocking and upsetting and racist.
and it felt intentional. And I'm really treading carefully here because I don't want to sound like the equivalent of a conspiracy theorist, but just the flipped perspective. So I don't want to say a lot of things, that I don't have evidence for. But that is what it felt like. It felt intentional. It felt like somehow people had gotten word that it's okay if you step aside and let things happen. It's okay if you don't push someone to the ground and get their plastic handcuffs on them, because I didn't see any of that happening. And I kept yelling I was literally yelling at not my proudest moment, so please don't judge me, but I was yelling at the television, like, where are the fucking police? Where are where's security? Where's the National Guard? Where are all those people? Where's that show of military strength that we saw in the summer?
Yeah.
And they were nowhere to be found. And when people started leaving the Capitol, they wandered around. I guess it's time to go. I guess nothing else is going to happen today. I guess I'll go.
Not
rounded up.
Taken to God knows where.
Not put on a bus and taken to the jail. I was watching Van Jones and, crying. And he was just like, every single person of color in this country knows that if you go to a protest, the minimum price that you can expect to pay is that you'll spend a night in jail. For civil disobedience, that is the price that you'll pay for walking into the Capitol, taking a knee and praying as an act of civil disobedience. You will be escorted out and pay, a price for that simple act. To watch what transpired this week and see no one ran from the Capitol to try not to get arrested. Why? Oh, I can't believe it. I just was like, you're not even running away from the police.
Yeah.
Because why do you have no fear of anything happening? That's where I got to stop my mind from going down a path without evidence. But I'm just like, how did you so confidently know you would not pay any consequence for this?
Yeah. Yeah. Even within this situation, I feel like there are sparks, and I just want to highlight, I want to cast some light onto some of those things. I want to talk about Stacey Abrams. I want to talk about what a beacon Stacey Abrams is. Stacey Abrams is a beautiful example of somebody who, just, I guess, gracefully accepted a defeat and then set to work creating the reality that she wanted to step into. And she just put her head down and got to work. And I want to celebrate her. I want to, as enraged and as upsetting as the things that happened on the 6th, and frankly, the things that have been leading up and inciting the things that happened on the 6th, there's also, I feel like, amazing work that's being done. And so I want to just shine some good light on that.
100%. The only thing that I can say for me that sort of kept me from maybe going off the deep end was what happened in Georgia, the work that was done in Georgia and the results that we learned. So even as we're watching this, we could feel like there is hope. It will take a few weeks in order for things to change, but they will. And, I was watching this morning, Donnie Deutsch or someone was like, I've not felt this hopeful about, and he's a Republican. He's not a Democrat. I've not felt this hopeful about the future in a long time, despite the darkness of this week and what has transpired. There is on the horizon an administration that wants to be inclusive of everyone. The people that Joe Biden is choosing for his cabinet and for key positions is very, very exciting and shows a starkly different intention and sends very different messages to all different groups of people in our country. And I just hope, my hope is that he's able to reach some of the people who feel unreachable right now. But I believe in the intent to bring us together, to bring us back to some level of sanity. Let's disagree on policy. Let's disagree on the specifics of how we solve a problem, but let's agree that we want to solve the problem together.
I also, I've thought about sharing this. I just want to share it right now as a timely mini spark. This could be a whole spark episode for me, but just because I feel like it's right on time. As it's been made clear on this podcast, history, and there are certain subjects that it's not super easy for me to wrap my mind around. They seem so vast that it's just hard for me to understand all of it, the complexities of the details, but also sometimes even big picture. So Cams has been very patient with me. And I thank you for that, Cams. But someone who has really helped me to understand and digest a lot of the things that have been happening is a historian, actually, named Heather Cox Richardson. Heather Cox Richardson she's an American historian. She's a professor of history at Boston College, and she has also taught at MIT and the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Heather Cox Richardson puts out this free email. You can subscribe to it for free, and about once a day, sometimes she takes the day off, but not lately, about once a day, she sends out this thing called Letters from an American. And she does a great job at distilling the news down into something that is very readily understandable, even for my brain, because the news in and of itself is so overwhelming. So she sort of distills it down and also provides historical context. And that historical context can take the form of the reason why we're experiencing this now is because of this thing that Ronald Reagan implemented decades ago. Or this rhymes with this moment in history in the 1800s, and here's how. And it really has also gone a long way into providing me with a forum to take in news that isn't so energetically overwhelming, that isn't hours and hours of me like sitting in front of a screen, taking in a lot of stuff that can send me into like a spin.
Yeah.
Of course, I take in news in other ways, but every morning I make sure to take in what she's written, and it's all annotated. It's all beautifully researched, and she's a great writer. And she has been such a spark for me. I've learned so much reading the writings of Heather Cox Richardson. She also has a Substack that you can subscribe to for like, I don't know, $5 a month or something, which I totally am going to do because she deserves my money.
Yes. Yeah.
Heather Cox Richardson deserves my support for all of her wisdom and intelligence of the way that she's writing.
She's truly doing a service to the world. Yeah. She's truly helping people understand what's happening right in front of us. I am so happy that you shared, because you had mentioned her name before. I went and looked it up, and I get her email now, but I'm curious about this subscription as well, Suze. Very, very curious.
Absolutely.
Can I share something that has helped me through this moment as well?
Yes, please.
It's short and sweet, but after having just told you that I raged at the television, I will tell you that a quote from John Lewis on being human that he wrote in Across That Bridge, A Vision from Change and the Future of America in that book, has how it reminds me of Stacey Abrams. It also helped me to calm myself down. Here is what he wrote. You are a light. You are the light. Never let anyone, any person, or any force dampen, dim, or diminish your light. Release the need to hate, to harbor division, and the enticement of revenge. Release all bitterness. Hold only love, only peace in your heart, knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won. That man continues to speak to us and reach us from beyond. And I'm just ever grateful. I needed that reminder. I needed that perspective of like, Laura, this isn't helping anyone to work yourself up into a rage. Hold only love, only peace in your heart, knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won.
It's so extraordinary. When I think about John Lewis crossing over that bridge, and we've talked about like the bravery, like really risking your life
Yep.
for something that you adamantly believe in, and linking arms and crossing over that bridge. I cannot imagine the kind of, I guess I should say, I can only imagine the kind of courage that would take.
Mm-hmm.
But when you share that, Camion, I can't honestly wrap my mind around what it is like.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine what it is like to be a John Lewis, or to be a person of color in this country, and to exercise and express this sort of grace and positivity. The system, it is so unfair. It is unfair, as that word is too pale. Like, it is so fucked.
I mean, yeah.
That it's really hard for me to wrap my mind around. John Lewis said those words, wrote those words, and believed and embodied those words. And I can't get my mind around how.
Yeah.
It really is something for me to meditate on.
Yeah, it is.
Because I mean, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, just the injustice and the violence and the indignity that has been visited on Black people, people of color, Indigenous people for centuries in this country. It's so, I look at these words that you just shared: release all bitterness, hold only love, only peace in your heart. And I'm like, John Lewis, I'll pray on it. Like, how, I'm not sure how you got to that place, but I'll work on it.
But if he can't the rest of us?
I'm not even a person of color.
I know, but like, if he can get to that place, can't the rest of us? And I mean all of us, the people who hate liberals and progressives, and the people who hate Republicans and conservatives. Like, can we all release the bitterness?
I just feel like we have to also look to people like Stacey Abrams, who was like, okay. And then
let's get to work.
Really eyes on the prize, focused on a vision of something that she wanted to make, like a reality that she wanted to make, and then just strategically got to work. What I'm saying is, I want to be like John Lewis. I want to channel whatever energies are coming up into supporting people like this who are doing great work.
I really think that's the key, because we cannot take these words and gloss over to Pollyanna. I'm light, and
that's right.
And all I need to do is have a great attitude and see the best. And it's not that. Exactly what you said is what's important. Like, can we hold this grace, this love, and this peace in our heart while we fight against the injustices, while we get to work, while we roll up our sleeves and say, all right, what do you need me to do?
So much to process, so much to think about.
And also, we don't know, by the way, another caveat, we have no idea what's going to happen by the time this episode airs on Monday.
Oh, yes.
All of this might feel like, oh, that was so 2 years ago.
That was so
what's
long
happened
ago.
now.
Yeah.
And personally, I hope that some big news does happen, that there are some, big consequences coming, but we shall see. And either way, we're marking this moment in time with how we felt when we watched the events of Wednesday, January 6th. 2021.
It makes me think, to look to John Lewis, to look to Stacey Abrams. What can I do? What can I do, even in my own small part, to contribute to the good?
100%. And I do believe, like, the first step is we cannot accept what happened. we can't
Yes.
accept it. And even
Yeah.
if that feels like not a positive, I think that's the place to start. You know, whatever we need to do to say, this can't happen. This can't be
Yeah.
the world we live in.
While we're here, before I know we're going to spark any second. I feel like we've been sparking this whole time, actually. We've been sparking this whole time. There were a lot of people who worked really hard with Stacey Abrams and her team's leadership to get that vote out in Georgia. And so to the people that we know who did work along those lines, really great creative work, you know, people, boots on the ground. Hi, Greg Bonsignor, canvassing to turn the vote out.
Hi, Mike Jackson.
Yes. Yes. And then you had people like Rory O'Malley and Celia Keenan Bolger putting together Stacey's Drama Club and just phone banking, getting Mandy Patinkin to phone bank. Like,
Come on.
really, really creative ways
Yeah.
that these artists are using their
Talents.
energy and
Yeah.
talents and
Yeah.
putting it behind these causes that will change the course of our lives and change history.
Yes.
So I just want to also thank those folks too.
100%.
What a time to be alive. Woo. But Cams,
Yeah, babe.
I'm going to turn a page.
Okay.
And as you know, Cams, and as you know, if you were there, we shared some sparks at the creativity retreat recently. They were so fun. They were so sparky. They were so tip of the iceberg. And we thought it would be fun to flesh them out more, and that Cams and I are going to surprise each other with some new info and share them out with y'all. So if you attended the retreat, some of this will sound familiar, but some of it will be freshity, fresh.
Brand spanking new.
And so Cams, shall I go first?
Yeah.
All right. Without further ado, I would like to present to you and to all of you listeners and sparklers, the spark. Oh my gosh, there's one more thing I wanted to say.
What?
Sorry, you thought I was about to launch. My parents sent me a Christmas card. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. I don't know if you figured out how to listen to this podcast yet, but thank you for the Christmas card. And inside the Christmas card, they sent a Christmas card. I was obsessed when I was little. I don't know what grade I was. I had a vision for a Christmas card that I wanted to make. And I drafted it. Maybe we'll post a picture of it. It is it looks very mid-century modern. It's a very stylized drawing of the little baby Jesus in a creche. It's very mod. It's got a circle around it with an orange backdrop, and sort of it's behind, there's a cross, and sort of like, it's very stylized. When I showed it to Nathan, he said, it looks like what I'm looking at is the baby Jesus in the crosshairs of a rifle sight. But I've signed it. I don't know how I hand colored. I remember I thought this was a really cool design idea. And it must have been my mom or my dad helped me get it copied on a copy machine. So I made several of them. Then I figured out how to place the image on it so I could fold the piece of, which is essentially just standard copy paper, fold it in quarters so that the image would land on the front. And so they sent me a copy they sent me one of the ones that I made when I was little. And my dad wrote, I enclosed the classic baby in the manger card. Wish it was dated. Share it with your Sparkies. So my father has dubbed you all Sparkies. So Sparkies, without further ado, I'd like to present to you and to Baby Cams a spark that is Haiku. Haiku. So Cam, some of this will be familiar, and some will be a surprise for you.
Lovely. I'm gonna sit back and relax.
Enjoy it. Did you all write haiku back in school? If so, you might be familiar with the common structure that most haiku poems follow. It is the 5-7-5 structure. The entire poem consists of 3 lines, 17 syllables in total. The first line is 5 syllables. The second line is 7 syllables. And the third line is 5 syllables. But hold the haiku phone right there. Cams.
Yeah.
On a website called graceguts.com, I found the following, which was written by Michael Dillon Welch, Who is Michael Dylan Welch, you might be asking yourself? I'm going to tell you, Cams. Michael Dylan Welch is the vice president of the Haiku Society of America, co-founder of the American Haiku Archives at the California State Library in Sacramento, and also the co-founder and director of the Haiku North America Conference. In addition to that, Michael has been publishing and teaching haiku for about 25 years, and all of this is to say, Michael knows a little bit about haiku. So
I think he gets as close to haiku expert as I've ever heard. Yeah.
So this is a piece of writing from Michael. Many people have been taught in schools that haiku is a 5-7-5 syllable form of poetry. In Japan, they don't actually count syllables at all, but sounds. And it's sort of an urban myth that haiku should be 5-7-5 syllables in English. Yep.
What?
Despite how widespread that belief is. The word haiku itself, for example, counts as 2 syllables in English, but 3 sounds in Japanese, counted as ha-e-ku, even if that's not how the Japanese say it. Consequently, despite how haiku has been widely mistaught in schools for decades, roughly 10 to 14 syllables in English in length is equivalent in length to a haiku in Japanese.
Wow.
So right off the bat, everything we know about haiku has been shot to hell.
Wow.
And yet we journey forward.
And yet, I can't see the path. Show me the path forward. I'm really, wow. It's interesting. I'm floored by this.
I think you could sum up this whole spark I'm going to share with you with, like, number one, we thought we knew, we don't know. And also that haiku is, in some ways I'm like, oh, it's easier than we thought and it's harder than we thought.
That's right.
Also, it's sort of, there's a haiku paradox theme happening. The history of haiku is deep, and seemingly simple structures are actually deceptively complex. So the more I read, the more guiding principles I discovered about haiku. You know this, Cams, but haiku can use the kareji, or the cutting word, which creates a pause or a break in the rhythm of the poem. Also, haiku frequently employ what is called a kigo, or a seasonal reference. And there's some other guiding principles that we're going to get into in a moment. But before I get ahead of myself, let's just look back. A little haiku history. A lot of this history is from an essay by Alan Summers on the website for the International Academic Forum's Haiku Award, which recognizes excellence in haiku. I did not realize how much haiku scholarship, haiku love, haiku practicing is happening around the world.
It's awesome because it's an incredible art form. It doesn't surprise me that it has, survived.
Incredible art form. And the more that I read, I get why we get taught haiku in middle school, because I think our teachers are like, I can make this curriculum suitable for this age group. And I get it. And the more I read, the more I was like, oh no, this is like, there are people who devote their lives to this art form, this poetic form, and are working towards a mastery of it that, I don't know, it was just really inspiring to me. So according to Alan Summers, haiku is one of the world's oldest regularly written forms of poetry. So deep, rich, old art form. And there was a poet named Basho who lived from 1644 to 1694. And Basho is recognized as haiku's foremost poet. So this is one of Basho's most famous haiku. Again, you may recognize it if you ever attended middle school. It goes like this. An old silent pond, a frog jumps into the pond, splash, silence again. So that's a Basho haiku, and it is employing, you've got the seasonal reference, you've got the natural reference, you've got your kareji, your cutting word with that splash. So this is another haiku. This was written by Katsushika Hokusai, who was a disciple of Basho. And this is a haiku that Hokusai writes that shares the imagery of spring. And it also describes the poet's writing process. I write, erase, rewrite, erase again, and then a poppy blooms.
Mm.
That is one of the few haiku. I mean, obviously, I have not read there are so many haiku swimming around in the world. I have not read them all, but I loved that one because it speaks directly to the creative process.
Oh,
so
yeah.
of course, I love that one. And we all been there. I write,
Rewrite,
erase again. And then, thank God, a poppy blooms.
It's so true. It's so simple, and yet it captures so much.
Yeah.
You know, in those 17 syllables or 3 lines, it captures a process that lives for us in perhaps days, weeks, months, of crafting something.
Yes. Yes. And I love how haiku does what it's done well. It does this amazing job of taking either an entire moment or an entire season or an entire, in this case, creative event, and it distills it down to those syllables. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing distillation. So this is a haiku written by Gozan, who I believe was also another haiku master. This was written by Gozan at the age of 71 in the year 1789.
Oof.
And here I am reading it on this podcast in 2021. The snow of yesterday that fell like cherry blossoms is water once again.
What?
The snow of yesterday that fell like cherry blossoms is water once again.
Wow.
So in those syllables, Gozan has captured multiple seasons, nature, the water cycle, and the circle of life.
Yeah.
In just those syllables.
Yep. Oh,
it is
my gosh.
Crazy. And I'm sure there are 17 layers that I'm missing because I'm not an English teacher. It's amazing how with careful reading of this work, how much springs forth.
And what a clear picture in your mind, of the process he's describing. It's very vivid.
Yes. So in the early 1850s, Western cultures learned of Japan's poetic art forms. And by the 1900s, haiku influenced writers like James Joyce, D.H. Lawrence, Amy Lowell, Ezra Pound, and William Carlos Williams. Then there's an author named R.H. Blythe, and R.H. Blythe created 4 volumes of haiku that became popular in the 1940s and attracted the attention of beat poets Allen Ginsberg, Gary Snyder, and Jack Kerouac. And Jack Kerouac said, a Western haiku. So Jack Kerouac westernized this and said, a Western haiku need not concern itself with 17 syllables, since Western languages cannot adapt themselves to the fluid syllabic Japanese. I propose that Western haiku simply say a lot in 3 short lines in any Western language. So take comfort in that, haiku writers.
I still am like, you know what, Kerouac? That just sounds to me like, rules don't apply to us. We'll make up our own rules. And
I feel like with that sentence, I propose that Western haiku simply say a lot in 3 short lines in any Western language. Jack Kerouac has written all of y'all a permission slip for more haiku flexibility. So I wanted to just share a little Kerouac haiku with you. Useless, useless, the heavy rain driving into the sea. I actually love that. Useless, useless, the heavy rain driving into the sea. Because when I read it, I could immediately picture just all that water falling into more water and sort of the uselessness of it. But I immediately saw like the gray and the rain, and I felt it. I thought it was very evocative.
It was, for me, I just pictured erosion on the California coast.
On the shoreline. Here's another Kerouac haiku. The bottom of my shoes are clean from walking in the rain. A lot of rain imagery in Kerouac haiku.
Yeah.
A lot of rain.
I like that.
But Kerouac wasn't the only one who was taken with haiku. Richard Wright, the novelist and poet who wrote Native Son, near the end of his life had contracted amoebic dysentery on a visit to Africa in around 1957. And despite various treatments, his health deteriorated over the next 3 years. In addition to fighting those health battles, over a short period of time, Richard Wright lost his mom and a couple of close friends, and he was also deeply affected by the death of Albert Camus, who he admired greatly. So Wright was sick and heartbroken and bedridden in Paris in 1959 when he was introduced to R.H. Blythe's 4 volumes of a haiku, which was enormously influential, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So Richard Wright borrowed this R.H. Blythe 4 volumes of haiku from a young South African. And this is how Wright began his intensive research of the Japanese masters. And haiku seemed to have become this calm eye within this very stormy period of grief and suffering and chaos. In addition to the loss and the illness, I think that Richard Wright, because of the work he was making, was also being surveilled by like the FBI. And so it was a really it was a intense time. And
why? Sorry, I'm like, why was he being surveilled? That's new. Because of what?
Because of his writing. This is a Black man who is writing in ways that,
because of the haikus.
No, not because of the haiku. In his other work, like Native Son,
gotcha.
writing about things that are,
Oh, I'm so sorry. I connected it to the haikus, and I was like, no, what? The haikus are dangerous.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I'm going to share something that in a minute that I think will shine some light on this.
Great. Yeah.
But it was said that during the final months of his life, Wright practically lived and breathed haiku.
Wow.
And sparked by R.H. Blythe's 4 volumes of haiku, sick in bed, Richard Wright wrote 4,000 haiku.
Oh my gosh.
And you know this, Cams, but his daughter Julia said they were self-developed antidotes against illness, and that breaking down words into syllables matched the shortness of his breath. And he continued, she said, to spin these poems of light out of the gathering darkness. It is very inspiring to me.
It's very
inspiring to me.
Yeah, very inspiring.
I just want to the point that you just made. I want to share a lot of this that I'm sharing with you now comes from a website called livinghaikuanthology.com, which I really, really loved this website for a number of reasons that I'm going to talk about. But this is from that website. It is now commonplace to claim that Wright's experiments with the Japanese poetic genre were therapeutic, but there must have been something beyond therapy that motivated his deep involvement with haiku. Wright's haiku began to fill in the missing part of his legacy. They reveal a side of Wright the public never saw. The poems reflected Wright's emotions, not what the publishing world with its preset categories thought of what a Black man is capable of thinking or writing. So Richard Wright was writing things that were, about the experience of the Black man. And you can see why, that's why it wasn't the haiku.
Yep,
this is why the FBI was, and other factions had their eye on him. And this haiku gave Richard Wright a place to fill in with his own emotions and I love the idea of it filling in his legacy. So the essay featured a quote from Anthony Walton from the Oxford American. This is 19 syllables, and I love these 19 syllables. Typecast as the voice of Blackness, he found freedom in 17 syllables. And I was like, way to distill it down,
That's
Anthony
right.
Walton.
That's right.
Typecast as the voice of Blackness, he found freedom in 17 syllables. So on the internet, you can find great photos of Richard Wright's haiku, and these haiku are archived in the Richard Wright papers at Yale. And they are these yellowing sheets of paper, and adhesed to them are typewritten haiku that have then been cut out and then affixed to these sheets of paper. And the papers are titled, they say, things or command. So I think that was an organizational system, maybe. I'm not sure if Richard Wright did that or if somebody else helped him to do that. But here's a Richard Wright haiku. It was so silent that the silence protested with one lone bird cry.
Oh my gosh.
So by the late 1960s, the interest in haiku could no longer be considered as a fad. as you well know, if you have ever been a student who has written haiku in class, haiku is still written and enjoyed by a whole host of contemporary writers. And again, that website, livinghaikuanthology.com, is a really great resource. And one of the things that it features is notable contemporary haiku poets writing about their personal relationship to haiku. So one essay that I read was titled "The Personal in Haiku," written by Roberta Beery, an award-winning American poet who lives near Washington, D.C. Roberta followed, in the 90s, she followed her then husband to a new job in Tokyo, and she was invited to join a haiku group that accepted people from outside of the Japanese culture. And according to Roberta, in their weekly sessions, she learned that haiku must be impersonal, so add that to the mix, and must include a seasonal element. So she was also strongly advised to write in the 575 3-line haiku form, and learned not to use initial caps or punctuation. So again, our learning continues. So Roberta said that for a long time, she tried to write a haiku that followed those requirements. She was not successful, but after a few years of living in Japan and studying, she decided to go out on a limb and write something personal while still adhering to the traditional form. And this is the poem she wrote. Picking strawberries, grandma's rolled up sleeves reveal pale tattooed numbers. Yeah. Picking strawberries, grandma's rolled up sleeves reveal pale tattooed numbers, which of course is based on her friend's mother, who was a Holocaust survivor.
That one got me.
You can pack a lot in this form.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
At first it takes a second, and then you're like, oh my God. Okay. Another haiku of Roberta's that I really loved is one she wrote about her childhood longing for her mother's red hat, juxtaposed to her adult inheritance of the same hat. Mother's red hat, short years of wanting it, long years of having it. Which I thought was so moving, because it's sort of like,
I'd rather have wanted it for longer and have, God.
Along the similar lines, a writer named Charlotte DiGregorio wrote, "At the thrift shop, a young man tries on my father's shoes." It's just, they're so distilled, they're so potent. On the same site, a haiku poet named Ernesto P. Santiago wrote, "To be honest, I prefer haiku because it is written in the present tense, the way I want to live and see my earthly life. Life is too short to live in the past." And I loved the present moment, now hear this of it all, but I also love that it provides another guideline, writing in the present tense. There's a writer named Anna Maris who noted on the same website, haiku often comes to her when she's in some sort of state of heightened emotion. Here's one of Anna Maris's haiku. "First frost, I give a beggar nothing."
Whoa.
It's just so potent. So Anna's essay that she wrote concludes, she says, "Often my work is a reflection of anger, passion, or wonder about the world. I will become a full-time writer when my children leave home and my time is only mine again." And the last line of Anna Maris's essay, this is the one that really got me. This is 18 syllables. "Until such time, I write haiku, as there is no time for anything more." And I was like, you can write a lot in a few syllables. So what do we make of it? At the retreat, haiku was such a fun spark of departure. And in fact, Cams and I surprised each other by introducing each other in haiku.
That's right. That's right.
And I'm going to read, this is my introduction of Camion.
Okay.
It's titled Laura Camion. Here we go. Renaissance woman, writer, actor, producer, shablam, the spark file. Get my Correggi in there.
I love it so much. I need to actually put that up somewhere.
You wrote a haiku for me I'm going to read. I love. It's entitled Susan P. Blackwell. Please enjoy.
Okay.
Vampire Slayer, speaking like a sailor would. Her heart, purely good. So not only within the form, but rhyming, which I love.
Little rhyme in there. Mm-hmm.
Little rhyme in there. So here's a personal favorite. What do we make of it? Our friend Chris Crothers writes one haiku every day. He began this practice on February 4th, 2011. The first haiku he wrote was a post for his friend's birthday. He's written one every single day since, which he posts as his Facebook status. And at first he thought it was this silly, weird, creative way to post, being of the structural limitations. But it has become so much more. So he typically writes these before he goes to bed, and the theme of the haiku, it really depends on what's happening in the day, how he's feeling in the moment. And sometimes it's literally about writing the haiku. He said there are definitely days when he gets stuck, but then he writes about being stuck, and a haiku is born, which reminded me of Katsushika Hokusai's And Then a Poppy Blooms.
Yes.
He has literally not missed a single day since February 2011. And by my calculation, this February 4th, 2021, just by writing for a few moments every day for the past 10 years, Chris will have documented his life in approximately 3,650 haiku, or 62,050 syllables. And I love this spark because it is like capturing, it's sort of a twist on a one line a day journal diary entry.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he said it's so evocative. He can look at a haiku that he's written 7 years ago and be like, bam, he's transported to where he was and what was happening in his life.
I love that.
I actually think this could be a great way to capture snapshots of like when you're on vacation or when if you're a person who like takes a walk every day, you could capture that something that you experienced or saw in that walk in a haiku. So I experienced something the other day and I wrote this. Early morning blue, a fox paused by the stone wall. Whoa, look at that tail.
Oh, that's awesome. And you'll remember that moment.
And
you'll remember that
I will remember that moment forever. That fox was healthy and that tail was bushy. So one of our retreat participants, Laura Coward, after the retreat, began writing a haiku for each episode of The West Wing, which is a show that she adores.
Fucking amazing.
Here are a few. One is called Celestial Navigation. That's the name of the Sorkin episode, Celestial Navigation. If you don't know West Wing, this might not make any sense to you, but if you do.
Delish.
Here we go. A secret plan to fight and guiding stars at night. Root canal, she's had it.
Laura.
This is the episode entitled, What Kind of Day Has It Been? This is, if you're familiar with The West Wing, this is the season 1 finale. So this may ring a bell. Orbiting, crashing, signals seen and signals missed. Get down. Blue's been hit.
Oh,
it's very evocative.
Wow.
In addition, and in conclusion,
I love this project, Laura Coward.
Yes, Laura Coward has also written a haiku for every day since our workshop beginning on January 1st, summing up each of her days thus far in 2021. And for January 6th, 2021, she wrote, National Disgrace, Rioters Coup in D.C., Invoke 25. And with that, I conclude the spark. That is haiku.
You can't now because that just made me cry.
You can get a lot done in those 17 syllables.
Yeah, you really can. Well, I was just flying high on the West Wing once. And I just like, whoa. It's like you like swung me on a string towards a wall. I just hit it. Oh my God.
Don't blame B. Blame Laura Coward.
Laura Coward. Oh my gosh.
Let's take a little break. We'll get you dried up.
Thanks.
We'll be right back.
Hi, friends. I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell.
And we're the hosts of the Sparkfile Creativity Podcast.
We are excited to report that we're accepting applications for the Sparkfile Select Group Creativity Coaching Program, a guided 6-month creative adventure.
This program is like a live, interactive episode of the Sparkfile Podcast, facilitated by the two of us and, of course, the occasional inspiring expert or guest maker. We'll investigate topics that directly impact your creativity energy, and productivity. A select group of participants will design and navigate their own creative roadmaps and support each other to get the work done. Now, you might have a specific project you want to tackle, or you might just want a healthy, productive group to engage with in a regular creative practice.
At each week's virtual meetup, through activities, accountability, and interaction with a community of peers, we'll lay the groundwork for your creativity to thrive. Show up and do the work, and in 6 months' time, your creative practice will be on point and your creative project will be well on its way.
As you know, we believe every single person is innately creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone. If you want to be surrounded by a group of like-minded creatives who are invested in your success, the SparkFile Select Group Creativity Coaching Program might be just right for you.
If this creative mixtape sounds appealing to you, go to thesparkfile.com, click on coaching, and apply. But do it soon because spots are limited. I hope there were enough surprises in there for you, Camion.
There were so many delicious surprises about Haiku, and I feel like we could do like 10 more Spark episodes about them. They're amazing.
It is so sparkish to me.
Yeah.
That thing that Chris Crothers has done is
it's incredible. And the art form has, any of the art forms, I think, that have existed for centuries. There's obviously a reason. There's something very, very special about it. And
absolutely,
I love that it lives on in big, strong ways right now.
The thing that blows my mind about haiku is, again, deceptively simple. You could keep peeling that onion and keep learning. And it makes sense to me that these scholars and poets keep diving deeper and deeper and deeper.
And I couldn't help but think about like creative limitations, because we've talked about that before, but even within your Spark today, you'd see the people who thrive on and are inspired by the more limitations, like you layer on, like, and it needs to be about nature and it needs to be impersonal, and you like layer, and they go deeper. And then the other creatives also completely justified and inspiring, the Kerouacs of the world, who are like, you know what? I want to free myself a little bit of those limitations and give myself a little more wiggle room. And it's all valid. It's so interesting to me to see how some people like thrive under one structure and some people thrive under another.
Cams, there are very famous haiku that are a single word.
Ugh.
One of them is tundra. And there's another haiku that is shark.
Okay.
I don't make the news. I just report it.
Okay. All right. That's to be explored further.
There you go.
Put a pin in that one.
Another spark for another day.
Yeah, but that's amazing, Suze. Thank you for that. I enjoyed that. I hope I've got a few surprises for you in my Spark.
I can't wait.
So one of the other ideas we explored over the weekend was the power of collective creativity, or ways that we create together. And the really cool thing about this topic is that we shared a Spark about it over the weekend, and then we lived it. Like,
oh my God, yes,
we
Camion,
created together over the weekend. So that idea really resonated for me on multiple levels. And speaking of levels, I thought, so why don't I just next level this Spark? So here we go. Okay. First, of course, I have to acknowledge what, while I was writing it, while I was writing this Spark about the power of what we can create when we create together, in that very moment was, shit was going down, as we've talked about, in our capital. And as our Congress people were in lockdown and sheltering in place, I was reminded that the power that I'm about to discuss can be used for evil. And that would be a very dark Spark indeed. And those are roads that I am not interested in traveling down. Suze, I know you're not interested in traveling down.
Yeah.
So we're going to focus on the positive, as we do, using our creativity for the powers of good. But I just couldn't record today without just acknowledging what was happening in the world as I wrote this.
Of course.
And, the dangers of using these powers for ill will.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I guess if you've spent time with us, you're probably very likely to know that we define creativity itself with a variation on Sir Ken Robinson's definition. He said creativity is applied imagination, and we often add that fights for the power of good.
That fights for the powers of good.
That fights for the powers of good. So applied imagination that fights for the power of good. And as you know, we also believe that everyone is creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone. So there's so much creative potential in support and accountability and community. Yeah. So at the workshop this weekend, we dug into the idea of bees, not honeybees, not queen bees, not wannabes, but cooperative creativity gatherings.
Not wallabies, Camion.
Not wallabies, but quilting bees, crafting bees, spinning bees, weaving bees, sewing bees, and raising bees, aka barn raisings, where whole barns are constructed by a community in a day or two. Fun fact, Suze. According to word histories, the word bee has been used in this context in conjunction with and preceded by a word defining the purpose of the meeting, such as sewing or quilting. The word bee has been used since the late 18th century in the United States.
Which is the 1700s.
That is so correct. I'm so proud of you. The 1700s. It's been used since the 1700s to describe a meeting of neighbors to unite their labors for the benefit of one.
Camion, can I tell you, I just put together the idea of why they call it a bee. Thank you. I didn't picture it before, but I'm now picturing a whole hive of bees just busily working on something, and then they step away and it's just look, we put all this honey away.
What is so interesting, Suze, that you say that is that the history of the word might be that. It might be, or might be influenced by that, but there's also speculation that it's from basically a word coming from people who came from England and settled here. The dialect, it went from boon. There's a word called boon that sort of describes the same thing. And they think in the dialect of the people who came here, it kind of got shortened to bean and then bee. So there's some evidence of that. I didn't put that in here because I did not anticipate that we would go down this road. But I'm happy to say,
look what you have in your back pocket.
I had no idea we'd go into that. But I think that the stronger image, obviously, is the idea of bees who work literally in a colony of bees to
doing that collective
doing the
work.
That's right.
Yeah.
So this definition was, to denote a meeting of neighbors to unite their labors for the benefit of one, which I found interesting because I would contest that perhaps only one person will leave with the quilt that got made, or only one person will get a new barn at the end of the day, but the entire collective will benefit from the experience of working together in cooperative creativity. As you know, all of these things fall into the category of activity known as a frolic, a combination of group labor and social mixing, which builds and solidifies community.
I feel like we should call our next virtual retreat the Spark Files Summer Frolic.
Oh my God.
Summer Creativity Frolic.
Totally do that. I would totally do that. I love it. Yeah.
Awesome.
So the earliest recorded instance of bee in the sense of a meeting for communal work is from the Boston Gazette. And it is dated Monday, October 16th, 1769. And here is the entry in the Boston Gazette. Last Thursday, about 20 young ladies met at the house of Mr. Nehemiah Liscombe here on purpose for a spinning match, or what it's called in the country, a bee. They met at 6 o'clock in the morning and continued diligently at work till 6 at night. They spun in general from 3 to 4 yards apiece and generously gave their cotton and linen yarn to Mrs. Liscombe. It was a very agreeable procession to see them all walk over the green in the evening. And then here in the newspaper, they inserted a poem. This is the poem. Twice 10 young blooming virgins trod our green with all their native beauties of 16. Beauty, when joined with such superior charms, might draw dessert to their arms. And this really made me laugh because I remember you saying and really stressing this point when we talked about it, is that there's always food. There's always food. So there's a lot of creative work, but there's also food. So the focus on, this poem, including the fact that they had dessert together at the end, really made me giggle. Since the 1700s, people have been crafting and snacking. I love it. I love it. The snacks. So one of the other things we noted, just to put it out there, is how gendered all of these bees are. Yeah. All the women had the sewing, quilting, weaving, etc., and the men had the barn raising or the raising bee. Lord, I really hope we can now declare that we've got all genders doing all the things, whatever strikes their fancy. But historically, you'll see that these were.
You know what strikes me as you're talking about this, Cammie, and our friend Kate Kin, we quote all the time as saying, and I'm not sure if Kate is quoting somebody else, what would this look like if it was easy? What would this feel like if it was easy? And I'm like, it would look like a bee.
Having your friends.
Putting up a barn, looking easy, finishing 12 quilts, looking and feeling easy, spinning, all of that spinning, looking easy. Yep. It would look like a bee. It'd look like a party where you get a lot of creative work done in community.
It really would. You, without a doubt, you would get work done. But what's really interesting, I think, is that, back in the day, many of these events really served to solidify female friendships and hand down family traditions from generation to generation. In a blog by Sherwin Smith on Book Cafe entitled The Quilting Bee, Then and Now, we read this. The importance of the quilting bee cannot be stressed enough, for this was not merely an opportunity to make a long, tedious task go quicker. Women walked miles and miles across rough country in Midwestern weather, lugging a basket of carefully hoarded scraps. The socialization aspect was at least as important as the material. Most of the quilters lived such isolated lives, and the quilting bee gave them the opportunity to exchange vital information, not only how to doctor your family, but what amounted to psychological advice, as well as tips and tricks in household management and cookery. So you can imagine how, you might look forward to this quilting bee for months and months,
Yeah.
So do you remember the movie or the book, How to Make an American Quilt?
I think it's one of those, I'm aware of it. I don't believe I've ever seen it.
Oh my God. Okay. I remember being so excited about this film. I remember waiting and waiting for this film to come out.
Wow.
It was mid-90s and Winona Ryder was in it. And Anne Bancroft and Maya Angelou. And it was based on the book by Whitney Otto. And I don't know that the movie ultimately lived up to the book, but it really was an early film that I can remember that really celebrated female friendships and multi-generational wisdom being shared. And it was kind of revolutionary in that way. That's all people talked about is people want to see this. It's a bunch of women connecting to each other. And which was annoying at the time. But the thing was it all centered around their quilting bee or their weekly stitch and bitch, where they would share the events of their lives and pass on stories and family histories. I think somehow the movie stayed with me for that reason. I don't think I had experienced enough of that in my own life. I didn't know that it was something that I longed for until I saw the film. And of course, now and years since, I definitely crave a semi-regular date with friends coming together for storytelling and snacks, of course.
With the exception of the snacks, it's sounding like the Sparkfile Select Group Creativity experience.
Oh, I'm bringing snacks to that too. So this got me thinking about another really powerful quilting story. And that is the story of the AIDS memorial quilt.
Oh,
This enormous effort really took the idea of a quilting bee, but broke
wow.
the boundaries.
Oh, Camion.
They found a way to bring people together from all over the world in an act of collective creation to honor the people we lost to AIDS. And here's just a quick, my God, this is a quick story of how it was formed and how it began. But in November of 1985, Cleve Jones, who was a longtime gay rights activist in San Francisco, got the idea for the quilt. He had learned at that time, in that moment, over 1,000 San Franciscans had died from AIDS, and he was organizing this like candlelight march. And for that march, he asked every person who was participating to write on a placard the names of people they knew and loved who had died of AIDS. And at the end of the march, they taped the placards together, filling an entire wall on the San Francisco Federal Building. And it looked like a glorious patchwork quilt,
Wow.
which is where
Wow.
he got the idea.
What a spark.
And he said, according to an NPR interview in 2016, Cleve said this: "It was gentle rain, no speeches or music, just thousands of people reading these names on this patchwork of placards up on the wall. And I thought to myself, it looks like some kind of quilt. And when I said the word quilt, I thought of my great grandma, and it was such a warm and comforting and middle American traditional family values sort of symbol. And I thought, this is the symbol we should take."
Wow. What a spark.
What a spark. And then he acted on it. So he created personally the first panel for the AIDS Memorial Quilt the next year. And they organized the Names Project Foundation with the hopes to educate more people to understand the impact of the disease and really try to keep their loved ones' memories alive. So at that moment, people from all over the country sent in panels. And in 1987, the quilt was displayed at the National Mall in DC, and it included 1,920 panels. So less than 2,000 panels, but 500,000 people visited the quilt that weekend. Then that was the first time it was displayed at the National Mall, but not the last time. And the quilt toured the country, and as it did, 6,000 more panels were submitted. Then
I remember going and seeing the quilt and also reading names, because the only sound in the space, and you may talk about this, but it was silent, except you could hear the names of the
people saying the names out loud.
Yeah, so I was a name reader. I remember being a name reader.
That's amazing. Well, the quilt went around the world, and today the AIDS Memorial Quilt is an epic 54-ton tapestry that includes more than 48,000 panels. Millions of people have visited it. I know. Millions of people have learned from it. It's such a powerful work of art, and it was co-created by thousands and thousands of people.
My God, where is it?
It's not on display right now, but it still has a life, obviously. But it isn't currently on display. It's difficult to display it. It's really big, but
oh my God.
Yeah. And it really occurs to me that while like so many of us are craving the opportunity to gather together on a regular basis, in a pandemic, it may just not be possible. But the AIDS Memorial Quilt brought people together from around the world with their creativity, with their love, and with their shared purpose, even though they were not literally in a room together. So I think it also represents like the possibility of, if you're thinking like, well, bees are great, but I just can't, we can't have them right now. I think we can find other ways. I think it's evidence of finding other ways.
We have the privilege of this technology. And I think that we felt it, not to harp on this, but I think we felt it at our retreat. The way I genuinely felt like I was in community with that amazing group of people, it's totally possible.
Yeah.
Bees are totally possible even during a pandemic.
Yep. Agreed. And at the workshop, Suze, we also spent a little time digging into the idea of the raising bee, aka barn raising. And this is when the whole community comes together to literally raise a barn in one day.
Yes.
They were very common in the 18th and 19th century in North America, but they still take place today in Amish communities. I have a fresh take on the raising bee right here, Suze, and I want to share it with you now.
I'm excited.
It's called the edible hut. And it is like a barn raising that just keeps on giving and giving and giving to the community. Here's the deal. I took this from the ediblehutdetroit.com. The Edible Hut is a community gathering space in Calamera Park on the east side of Detroit with a living, edible roof and oculus to the sky. The Edible Hut combines elements of a traditional hut, an outdoor sculpture, a neighborhood garage, and an edible garden. The roof is a garden of edible perennial plants such as sage, thyme, lavender, and oregano. The inside of the space incorporates peaceful colors to create an enchanting space for gathering, rest, and pleasure. The Edible Hut offers a location for community activities, to find shade while gardening, service summer lunches, hold outdoor classes, sell vegetables from the garden, and come together for meals, meetings, music, and shared activities. Creating the hut. This is our B. Creating the hut is a collaborative process that includes teams of artists, architects, community members, youth from the neighborhood, and teachers and students from the Sorama Institute and Osborne High School. Suze, I'm going to share some pictures of this amazing project, but they say that the process of working together with the whole community is activating that park, it's building relationships, and it's bringing people together. And I just think, well, this project has it all: collective creativity, community, and you can snack right off the roof, Suze.
That's right.
The food element is built right in.
Yes.
There's still snacks.
There's your bee.
There's your bee.
Still snacks.
But it keeps going. It's obviously
May there always be
ongoing.
snacks.
May there always be snacks. But it's communal creativity. And finally, I got to thinking about the bees of yore and how many of them were centered around work that truly needed to get done. I mean, socks and clothing needed to be mended or sewn from scratch. Blankets for newborns or honeymooners needed to be made. Barns need to be raised. Yes, there was fun and frolicking happening, but there was also real work, as you mentioned earlier. Like, there was real work, creative work and otherwise getting done. So I have a modern day version of this as well. According to Social Work Degree Guide, a laundromat is a neighborhood's meeting place. It is a place where community members gather weekly. And in 1999, Rise Wilson decided to help bring art education to her Harlem neighborhood laundromat. Setting up folding tables in front of the storefront, she extended passerby with a unique opportunity to make a piece of art. Now, the Laundromat Project has served a number of communities throughout New York City. According to Urban Omnibus, Rise Wilson wanted to exercise communities' existing beauty and creativity to challenge a wide range of social inequities with regard to race, class, gender, and environmental justice in the service of community development. So to do so, the project relies on places like the laundromat, a unique everyday space that caters to a diverse cross-section of New Yorkers. By embedding art practice into these spaces, the project aims to generate a new level of pride of place among residents and increase public understanding and engagement with relevant issues. What this looks like among the washers and dryers is as varied as the laundromat's clientele. So, Suze, there are guest artists who like collect the histories of the Filipino or Filipino American community in Queens. There are projects that take on the effects of gentrification, where neighbors share their perspectives on the transformation of Harlem through video documentary and prose.
Wow.
There's yoga, there's printmaking, there's weaving.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so much more. And I just can't help but think about like what a freaking genius idea this is. Again, it's centered around work that needs to get done, laundry, but as long as we're all together, can we engage in a collective activity that unites us in purpose? Maybe it entertains, maybe it educates, but it certainly celebrates the coming together to create. So if we're feeling inspired to make something of this, there are literally endless ways to bring people together with acts of communal creativity. And as we proved this weekend, you can even do it over Zoom.
Yes.
When we put our minds to it, we can create a warm, safe space for our collective creativity to thrive, to grow, and to build on the energy of each other's presence, just like they did in the old-fashioned bees.
Oh, Camion, that was full of fresh sparkiness.
Freshy fresh, because you know what? Bees are happening all around us. Like when you go with this definition of collective creativity, you look around and you're like, this art form, yes, it has continued on in traditional like quilting bees. You still see those happening and crafting bees, and thank goodness for that. But you also see an evolution of the idea of bees and like the laundromat.
As you were talking, I was also thinking this work that, the phone banking and the canvassing and getting the vote out. I feel like that was Stacey Abrams organized, and Stacey Abrams' team, community creativity to get the vote out and to do it in all of these creative bee-like ways.
That is correct. It's
also
really
another
amazing.
spark that just jumps out at me is you cannot swing a dead cat in these bee sparks without running into somebody named Nehemiah. So,
I know. Nehemiah is perhaps responsible for it all.
But my spark with that is I feel like that's a great baby name. Let's bring it back. I need some Brooklyn babies, some hipster babies to be called Nehemiah.
They might be way ahead of you. We should look up. It's
true.
It could be happening already.
2020's hottest baby names.
Oh my God.
Nehemiah. I think that's it, Cam.
It is. And we're off and running in the new year.
Off and running in 2021. This episode of The Spark File was made on Muncie, Lenape, and Seminole land. And as always, we hope this put another bunch of sparks in your file. If there is a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and fanned it into a creative flame, we have some good ones that we're going to share out with you.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to share that with us, we hope you'll email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We will even happily take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you have to share a creative risk that you've taken recently.
Follow us on social media at The Spark File, and be sure to subscribe, rate, and 5-star review this podcast. It really does help other listeners to find us. If you like this podcast, we hope you share it with people that you love. If you didn't like it, it doesn't matter because you don't hold the measuring stick.
Oh, boom, Suze. If something tickles your fancy and gets your creative juices flowing, we're writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
My Sparkies, you got to take it
and make it. Bye.
Bye. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell.
And we're the hosts of the SparkFile Creativity Podcast.
We are excited to report that we're accepting applications for the SparkFile Select Group Creativity Coaching Program, a guided 6-month creative adventure.
This program is like a live, interactive episode of the SparkFile Podcast, facilitated by the two of us and, of course, the occasional inspiring expert or guest maker. We'll investigate topics that directly impact your creativity and productivity. A select group of participants will design and navigate their own creative roadmaps and support each other to get the work done. Now, you might have a specific project you want to tackle, or you might just want a healthy, productive group to engage with in a regular creative practice.
At each week's virtual meetup, through activities, accountability, and interaction with a community of peers, we'll lay the groundwork for your creativity to thrive. Show up and do the work, and in 6 months' time, your creative practice will be on point and your creative project will be well on its way.
As you know, we believe every single person is innately creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone. If you want to be surrounded by a group of like-minded creatives who are invested in your success, the SparkFile Select Group Creativity Coaching Program might be just right for you.
If this creative mixtape sounds appealing to you, go to thesparkfile.com, click on coaching, and apply. But do it soon because spots are limited. Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the SparkFile here to let you know that the doors are open for the SparkFile Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.